Hello, and thank you for supporting our planet work. This is CD number 1 in the series, Insights from the Otherside. On this CD is the first interview with Barbara Rose, entitled, What Can Happen in the Blinking of an Eye? Topics include, why all ancient prophecies will end very soon, the evolution of the soul, and you are not going crazy. It really is the end of history as we have known it. Okay, let's get started.
Mel, and welcome, and let's hear the story.
Well, thanks for having me. Basically, I'm a product of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, the peak of the Cold War. And my story is one in which I think people can learn a lot about what fear can do. I was a product of the Cold War and really believed everything that I was being told, in that the population was out of control, the ecology was being ruined, we were running out of resources, we were killing each other in massive numbers and all this sort of thing. So I bought that. I actually bought a great deal of that and became very fearful about the fate of mankind. And by the early 80s, I had become very depressed because I was living in a world in which I thought was going to die. And I thought that there was no way out. And in fact, all these scientists and experts, quote experts, were telling us that there was no way that we could get out of the situation that we got ourselves in with the energy, with the ecology, with human rights and all that sort of thing. And I really bought it. I really thought that we were a mistake. In fact, I began believing in the deepest part of my heart that nature had gone wrong and created a cancer named mankind. And I really thought that we were going to kill ourselves and take the planet with us. And I became a very depressed person because living that way with no hope is a terrible way to live. And I began looking at mankind as a cancer on the planet. And guess what I am? I'm a human. And I manifested cancer in my life, and a real good form of cancer that they could not cure. And by the time that I was diagnosed, I was given 6 to 8 months to live. I remember when the doctor came in the office, I made a wisecrack, hey doc, am I going to live? And he had a look on his face that told me the whole story. And I then got even more depressed than I'd been before.
It's a pretty depressing look to have to endure.
I went through stages of cursing and hating God, what we might call God, my life, cursing my life, cursing humanity. I went through a deep, depressed period trying to struggle with both dying and some part of me wanted to live too. It's very funny. For those of you out there that have been ever diagnosed with something terminal, you know what I mean. There's a part of you that wants to live, but they tell you that you're dying. It's a very strange feeling to have, and I really have a lot of empathy for people that have been through that experience. What happened was that I'd waited too long for diagnosis. It was a type that they couldn't really do anything about anyway. And so rather than go through radiation and a lot of that kind of treatment that would have made me a vegetable for sure before I died, I decided to handle it myself and basically tried to stay away from the drugs and any kind of treatments like that. And I began a process. I actually lived about a year altogether longer than I was supposed to, as far as the experts were concerned. And the whole while, I hadn't really got the message about why I had manifested cancer in my life. And I think any people out there that have illnesses should really focus on why they have it, what's really behind it all.
Without feeling guilty about that.
Yeah, because that's the only way you can get to the cure, actually, is to find out what in you has allowed that to generate. I think we make ourselves ill more than anything else, or we let people make us ill, but that's letting ourselves become ill too. I remember waking up about 4:30 in the morning and realizing I just woke wide awake, and I knew I was going to die soon that day. And I woke my caretaker, and I told her that I thought today was today, And then I made a few calls and woke up some friends around the country, some closer friends, 3 or 4, and basically said goodbye. And I then remember going back to sleep, just falling into a deep sleep. And the next thing I remember is that I'm standing outside of my body, looking at my body with the darkness all around me. And it was quite surprising and quite interesting. First thing I noticed was that I did not have pain, and I felt very different. I felt almost like the weight of the world had been released from me. And I remember looking at my body several times, and I guess it's because I'd done some reading, something triggered in me, and I clicked and said, oh, I think I'm dead. And in the life review is a lesson in itself. You get to see the things you did and did not do. You get to see a review of every minute second of your life. Not one second is ever forgotten in the book of life, or in what you might call the energy realm that we live in. The things that tended to stand out in the life review were not the big things, not the big things I'd hoped for, not the big things I thought I may have done in my life till then, big events or big thrills in your life or whatever, or like going to Disney World or whatever. That didn't stand out. What did stand out was all the times that I took a minute to help somebody when there was nothing in it for me, and also the times I didn't take out, when I could have taken a moment to help somebody change a tire. Every time you pass somebody on the road that you think you should have helped, that'll come back in your life memory, not as a curse, but to remind you that we're here to help and assist each other more than anything else. And those seem to be the big losses of all the times that I could have helped someone or been nice or been kind, or took a walk in their shoes and understood why they were in the mood that they were in. I saw that we're constantly influencing each other, both to the positive and the negative, constantly in this life. I saw that when you were in a bad mood and you argued with someone, and usually most of the arguments we have are with loved ones, oddly enough. That was one thing that stood out. It was very strange. I saw that when you were angry with someone, you might have an argument, or you might turn away from them and curse them or whatever, that this energy was transferred to them. It affected you and your immune system, but it also affected them and their immune system. And then wherever they went, it would affect whoever they contacted.
So it's constantly being
it's like
passed
a ripple,
on.
yeah. And if you could see it the way I saw it, you'd be very careful with cursing people or having negative thoughts, because they spread like ripples through waters all around us. And in fact, the human race is in a process now of what I saw was detoxifying the negativity of the species. And we're going through healing crisis after healing crisis in this time. And that's what we see out there in the world, from Herzegovina to LA. These are healing crises that are going on.
So what you were given from your experience indicates that this is a detoxing process, not something that's taking us farther into the darkness.
No, in fact, I saw very, very clearly that the world has never been in better shape than it is now en masse. There are more people being fed than ever before in history. There are more therapy going on than ever before in all of human history. All kinds of therapy, from alternative to traditional. There's more people being healed than ever before in history now. There's more access to law and information, travel. The prejudices are disappearing very rapidly, although there's still some out there. I saw that we've never been in better times in history than we are now.
What about population? Why are there so many of us?
Okay, this is one thing. The population explosion, because I've been reading all the experts before I developed my...
Was part of your depression.
Yes, was part of... That was the big one. I went over fearing toxic waste, I went over fearing nuclear missiles, and I went over fearing most of all the population explosion on the planet. But I thought that population explosion would not only stress us and kill us, but also the rainforest and the animals, and they had a right to live.
And there's good evidence for that, wouldn't you say?
Not anymore. I would say I had misinterpreted the information, because most humans, because of our education system, have a very narrow view of history. And the human race itself has only been around a short period, so we're only now beginning to get into what we recognize as long-term cycles of events, both geological and otherwise. So we're just getting into a period in which we can look back and really see these cycles that have been going on.
And I want you to explain that.
We're part of a larger being, and I call that Gaia because that's the term that's used most now by both scientists and spiritual people and people of many cultures. Gaia means the earth is a living being, and that's what I saw on the other side, that the earth is a living being of which we are a part of that system. We are the part of the system that knows that is reflective, that has a sense of history, time, and those sort of things. We're like, if the earth is a body, we're like the brain of the body. And you have the rainforest as the liver, and you can just break it up that the earth is a being of which we're a part of that being. And I would say very blessed to be the human part of this being. From what I've seen, I would be happy to be an atom in this universe, but to be the human part of the God, the human part of this experience is a blessing beyond my wildest estimation of what blessing might be. And to get back, I was given a review of large systems, what history is all about and what the large systems are about. We have such a narrow view of what's going on, and we can get really freaky and paranoid with narrow views. I saw that as we form into a global consciousness or a global being, which is what is about to happen, that we're all the same being, different facets of that being. We are all, in fact, the soulmates of each other. We're part of the same being. So cursing another human is like cursing your hand, So what's happening in long-term cycles is that as we come into this new world of global being, of global consciousness, things like toxic waste are of a global nature. They made us all start thinking like we've never thought before. They made us come across our boundaries, our barriers, and think of us as a whole. These problems are soul-sized, but we've always been well equipped to handle these things, and we will. We're in the process now of detoxing the toxic stuff on the earth. In fact, there would be billions of dollars to be made in cleaning up the earth now. Billions to be made. All of nature, all of mankind's events, from the one-cell amoeba all the way up to this phase of our evolution, has been totally centered on survival mode behavior. We are about to transcend that. That's the good news. The human being is the first part of this system of Gaia that will transcend the survival mode, and that will make us a different creation that's been talked about in the Bible and prophecies. The new creation that's coming is a being that knows no fear, that has no fear, a being that has transmuted confusion and fear into a whole new state of existence. Where our technology, the whole world is at a point now in which we can truly, for the first time in all of history of the world, including the one-celled amoebas, transcend the survival mode. And in that, we will also be the first part of the system, the Gaia system, to transcend biological limits. Gaia wants to be unlimited, and that's why the human being is the dominant species on the earth right now. We stand the best chance yet to becoming unlimited and immortal.
Millen, there's so much I want to ask
I'd like to go right back to the population just to wrap it up, because that's the big one.
Yes.
That was the big one for me too. I saw on the other side that there's not enough of us on the planet yet to shift us into higher consciousness. It's not about intelligence. It's not about your spiritual path so much as it is there's something bigger going on. It's like your brain wouldn't function at the level it is unless it had about 10 billion or so cells or synapses. We need, in that order of magnitude, that many more people on the planet. With every human that's born on the planet, the system gets wiser. And I go into this in my workshops, the detailed explanation, a historical explanation of how, as a population has grown, we've also gotten much wiser. What we have is we're not at the optimal energy range to shift into higher consciousness at this point, but we're getting very, very close, and it's keyed in to the population explosion more than anything else.
And what do you feel, what's our time base here in terms of
the time base is very soon. very soon.
Soon meaning?
Okay, I can give it to you this way. Within a couple of generations, or in cosmic time, in the blinking of an eye, it's about to happen in the blinking of an eye. It's about to explode exponentially, just as a child being born. In fact, I saw that as a global being that we're designed to be, that we have not even been born yet. And as we become a global species and a global being, then we will be born. We're about to be born. It's very, very close now. And there are many, many things. The increase in the population will also change politics. It will change money. It will change the way we think. We will redefine yet again the human condition, as we have many times in history, with the laws of Hammurabi, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, those type of things. We're going to redefine the human condition yet again.
What is your sense of what this being, how this being will function differently from who we are now?
It will be as different as a child to an adult. Right now, the entire human species is in its adolescent stage, and we act that way with our money, our self-image, our worldview, how we treat each other. We're acting like adolescents. That's because we're a very young creation yet. It will be as different as an adult to a child.
Can you explain what how the adult will?
Well, the
be in the world?
adult generally manages energy better, plans longer-term planning, sets a goal, accomplishes them. It's a whole different way of being. Also, what I saw was that the entire Industrial Revolution, that is officially over as of 1975, is really a very short segment of human history. It was a segment in which all the systems that needed to be got up and running to free mankind were affected. In fact, I saw that the people of the future look back on us now, believe it or not, us, as the giants of history. We're the ones who transmuted fear, because you can't take fear to the next level of human consciousness. Fear does not exist there. That's why people are having big fear issues right now. And this is something I talk about in depth in my workshop, why we're going through this phase of detoxification. And we're the ones, the people of the future just admire us for accomplishing this, because we're the ones who transmuted this and got all the systems up and running that freed mankind. The future is non-industrial. Right before I came back, I knew I would be coming back. I knew I'd be going through the incarnation cycles. I was given education in the mechanics of reincarnation and all these things. And I remember my last thoughts on the other side was that, and I was in a state of grace, and I was just honoring what you might call God, Godhead, the great self. I just kept saying, God, I love my life. I would take it anyway, because it's all changeable. Just give me my life back. It's all in our hands. We can change any part of it, past, present, or future. So my mantra on the other side, I just kept saying, dear God, I love my life. I love my life. And I literally woke up saying those same words in my body, to my amazement. My caretaker was in tears, just really quite losing it. She was absolutely positive that I was dead. We'd had an amplified stethoscope and ways of testing the vital functions, and it was like it blew her mind.
That's understandable.
I was a little out of it myself, but I can just remember her crying and just losing it and coming back and crying and losing it again, just absolutely amazed, because she said my eyes were gone. The eyes supposedly change when you die. The stiffness, all of that, coloration. In fact, she said she was so sure I was dead that she wasn't even going to wait the 6 hours that we'd agreed on.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you were going to wait the 6 hours because you had done some reading about
I'd done some reading before I died, and it sort of felt right to me that you were supposed to leave the body alone for about 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I had tried that, but I couldn't get anybody to agree to it legally. It was just, I don't know, people just weren't ready at the time for that sort of thing.
So what was the key to, what was your experience after that 7 years that brought you into a more public light? And
I started being noticed by researchers, and one in particular, Phyllis Atwater, who's written several books. Coming Back is one of the more recent ones, and she's a major researcher in the field. I met her And I had had an impression in me that I would meet a woman at some time that would be a key to my becoming fully aware of what I had been through. And when I met Phyllis, there's like a whole door opened, and the fullness of it came to me at that time. Before that, I had been shut down by many people around me, friends and family and things, because they wanted to know how I could know the things that I knew, because I was basically a high school graduate and not shown any real interest in these sort of things before then. But I kept noticing that when discussions would come up, this information would come through. No matter what they were talking about, I could add to the information. And people would look at me like, who are you, and how could you possibly know anything about this, you know? So that tends to shut you down for a while. You just tend to keep it to yourself.
It's probably very confusing, too.
That, too, because you start questioning yourself, too, because the whole experience would take me many hours to tell you about, but it seems like a seconds in a dream when you look back on it. So I did go through a period of self-doubt. Of course, that was there originally, and that was something I had to work on when I got back.
Well, how would you describe our place in the scheme of things, Mellon?
Very rare and very special. The type of consciousness that humans have, that Gaia has evolved into the human, is a fantastic. It's a combination of spiritual, mental, and emotional range. It isn't like that everywhere out there. Of course, the universe is full of life, but there are many different types of beings out there. The human being seems to have all of it. We're very young, though. We're not even been born yet, so imagine where we're going to be in the future. The good news is that the future of mankind is excellent. We are, in fact, designed for success.
You have an extraordinarily optimistic vision of the future, and on Discovery, one of the questions that is often asked is, how do you feel about the future? Are you optimistic? And almost always, I interview people that are working towards a better world, but the answer now tends to be guarded optimism, or something a little less than that. You're full on optimistic. We're going to be fine.
Oh yeah, we're designed for success. This is not a mistake that we're the dominant species on Earth, and in my workshop I get into quite a bit of detail about that. Secondly, we have within us all the answers that we have needed any time in history to answer any of the problems of history. We have always manifested the answer. We have that ability within us. The future is quite beautiful. That's because when I got to see the higher self matrix on the other side, of which all human souls are a part of, the highest characteristic is positive action. In other words, most of the energy on Earth is successful. Most of the energy in human beings is the energy that wants to go on, that wants life to go on. And more than that, I really was given a history of the world from the beginning way on into the future, and especially the next few hundred years in great detail about what's going to be happening, the high probability, because anything can happen. But I went beyond the thought form realm, and I went into what's called the greater fractal, which is where, if you could add up all the sum total of human...
Did they tell you this was called the greater fractal?
There are many fractals of reality, yes. And I call them local reality.
This is your term. That's a great term.
This is the sum total of the human essence is in the positive mode. And that is what is carrying life on, and that is why the world has not ended. And every time they predicted the end of the world, think about it, it's only gotten better. I do a whole talk on the history of the end of the world, and every time they predicted the end of the world, it's only gotten better.
Tell us about the future, and I'm interested in the link that you seem to be suggesting between the future and the present, that there is this tangible communication going on between future and present. Talk to us about that.
We're right now evolving on an evolutionary scale into what's called, you've heard the word bandied around, fifth dimensional awareness. Mm-hmm. You've heard that a lot. We're moving out of third and fourth, we're moving up, because we're still going to have third and fourth dimension awareness, but we're moving into a fifth dimensional awareness now as the species gets wiser and wiser. And that fifth dimensional awareness is an awareness that in third and fourth dimension, your view of now is very limited, what the now is. And fifth dimensional awareness, the past, the present, and the future are a part of the now, and you're aware. You are consciously aware of what's going on in the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. You can become aware of what's been called simultaneous reincarnation. In fact, all of our lives, past, present, future, are going on simultaneously in what they loosely call the great now, the eternal moment of now. Fifth dimensional awareness is going to make us so sensitive, and that's why there are a lot of people having difficulty right now.
Is that part of this being that we're going to?
Yes, much more expanded being. We're already light beings. Every atom in our body gives off light with every function of our life. If you could see, as I see in the energy realm, humans are beautiful light shows. Well, so are trees. But as an energy realm, we're a fantastic light being already. What now we're going to grow into is the awareness of that, and the vision of it, and the direct knowledge. Fifth dimensional awareness is different than the past because up till now we've had to think and mentally work out things. In fifth dimensional awareness, you go into direct knowing. And there's a part of us that's larger than our mental capacity. There's a part of us that where there is no doubt, there is no confusion, and I call that part the knower. You may call it anything you like. But there's a part of us, the greater part of ourself, has no confusion, doubt, or fear in it, and that's the part of ourselves that we're coming into. Fifth dimensional awareness is so powerful. You've heard of people like Sai Baba, Tomas of Brazil, the great manifestors that can manifest anything. They're the 100th monkey. They're to show us the potential of the next level of human consciousness. The next level, the fifth dimensional level, is so awesome and powerful that you cannot take fear with you there. Fear would destroy instantly. If you understand what your mind-body relationship does now, what your mind and body can do to your immune system and give you disease, just think if Sai Baba had a couple of bad thoughts, what would happen? You see what I'm saying? There's a natural filter built into these different levels, and the natural filter from the next level, the fifth dimensional level, is you have to let your fear go. And that's what we're all, every one of us on this planet, dealing with right now, because we have millions and millions of years of fear-oriented patterns within us called survival mode behavior. We're about to transcend that for the first time ever. It's absolutely going to be wonderful to live in a world without fear, doubt, or confusion, to live in a world in which the manifestations are almost instant.
Do you expect to be physically alive in that world? In this life?
In this life, it's a couple of generations away. In cosmic time, it's in the blinking of an eye. It's a breath away. It's that close.
So you may be an 80-year-old man, but you may be alive to see.
Or it may be my very next incarnation. It's as close for most of us as our next incarnation.
Amazing.
So,
We're talking with Mellon Thomas Benedict on Discovery, if you've just tuned in. Mellon had, I guess you call it a near-death experience. You could also call it a death experience, I guess. He was dead for about an hour and a half and came back to life with a lot to share. And I'd like to focus on men and women, the gender issue, for a few moments, and ask you to tell us how you feel about where we are in the gender issue. It seems to be one of the most friction-prone places in our human natures.
We're living in a time in which this is, for most of us, 99.9% of the human beings on the planet, including most of the gurus, this is the first lifetime in which we have had so much choice. Your last lifetime you had less choice, the time before that less choice, the time before that less choice. Going back in time, you were pretty much stuck in your family bloodline karma, and you were also, if you were a male, pretty much stuck to where you were born, having to stay there to do what your father did, and if you were a female, you had even less choice. So we're suddenly, for most of us, born into this new world in which there's unlimited choice, especially in the West, like America. That's why many of us go to the mall and get spaced out. I go to the supermarket and get spaced out. There's just too many choices, when probably the last life for some of us was getting a potato out of the ground. You know what I mean? And you considered yourself lucky to have that. Now, I can get stressed out by thinking of where we're going to go for dinner tonight, when 10,000, 100,000 years ago, going out to dinner was a very different proposition. You could be dinner just as well as getting dinner. So the stress level, I want to let people know the stress level is less than it's ever been on the planet, if you consider all of history. Things are much safer than they've ever been, no matter what the media is telling you. But as far as men and women go, the first lifetime in which we have not needed each other for survival, that's going to free us up. Many of us are still stuck in the old patterns because we have many, many lifetimes of needing one or the other for survival, especially women needing men. That time is over in history. But many women are still carrying that and still desiring a mate when most of their incarnations probably not been very happy because they married for survival mode reasons, you see, to survive.
So we need to seek mates not for survival, but for probably participating in this great event that you're talking about.
This whole thing about soulmates, as I saw on the other side, is a little bit backwards. Whenever you're looking for something outside of yourself, you're going to miss the boat. We are both male and female. This is shown as we evolve in our mothers in the womb. We go through both male and female stages. We are male and female beings. So in that light, I was shown that we are our own soulmates. The ultimate soulmate you've ever been looking for, like it or not, is yourself. Now, that could be a happy proposition or not for some people. Anything out of yourself is what I call playmates. And you have positive and negative playmates. Why you're attracted to negative playmates is what we'll be going into in the workshops, and why you're attracted to positive soulmates, or playmates as I call them. Secondly, there's a big schism happening right now. You know how in school, grade school, there's a period in which the girls grow faster and get smarter than the boys for a while? Well, that's happening in evolution right now, and I'm telling all the males out there, the women are way ahead, guys. Catch up. Get in touch. In the consciousness movement, and I do talks all over the country, I can tell you, and you probably know this, it's evident, is that it's 95% women coming to the meetings, putting up their money, buying the books, supporting the consciousness movement. The men have fallen way behind, but this is only a short period. It's like that school stuff I was talking about where the girls spurt ahead for a little while. And it's time that women came into their power. That's why now it's the time of the goddess. You've heard this before. It's really the age of the goddess. And in fact, if you'll check statistics, Gaia is producing more females now than males worldwide, and by large numbers, in fact. That's because as the population gets up to around 7 to 8 billion, where it needs to be, it would be very dangerous to have a more male population than a female population. Gaia is very wise. And this balance, in a balanced world in the future, you're going to see the increase of androgynous beings on the planet. You're going to see the increase of what you might call alternative lifestyles. It's all a part of the further evolution of the species, of the actual balancing out and leveling out of the population. Now, Gaia just won't get to the 7 or 8 billion and put on the brakes. The brakes are already on. They're coming on slowly to ease us into this optimum population density on the planet. And so it's gracefully being put on us now. And so you find a lot of people out there that have decided not to have children now. They think it's for this, that, or the other reason. It's kind of what I call the Gaia program kicking in.
Melon, what was the most unusual or startling thing you learned while you were on the other side?
The hardest thing for me was that everything's pretty much the way it ought to be. That was the big one. That was the hard one to take.
Because you went in with all these opinions.
like everybody else, I had all these judgments and fear. That was the biggest one to swallow. Secondly, the second thing was that the sacred and the mundane have been separate up till now. Religion basically has been the fault of that. In other words, heaven had to be somewhere else, and you were unclean and unworthy until you died and went to heaven. The truth is now, in fifth dimensional awareness, that the sacred and the mundane come together. We are sacred beings, and we're about to realize that and start treating each other as sacred beings. Everything we do is sacred, from going to the bathroom to coming up with good ideas to help the rest of humanity. Everything we do is sacred, and we're about to come into that realization on the planet. That is, for me, has been the biggest struggle in my life, is to constantly remember that everything I do is sacred. That changes what you do and how you do it, if you'll keep that in mind. It doesn't make me a religious person. I'm not a religious person. In fact, the closest thing I come to having religious thoughts is not The only thing I'm really religious about now is not harboring negative thoughts in your system. Not only because it harms you, it harms everyone else.
How do you, if you're full of negativity, how do you begin to dispel that, dissolve it? What advice do you give to people?
Well, the good news is that there are a million ways to do it. And that's why alternative healing and processing and psychotherapy and body work and you name it is going on out there. Since 1985 or so, I've been blessed with the funding and whatever to go around the planet, all over the planet, and study healers and watch them and be with them, everything from the psychic surgeons of the Philippines to you name it. And one thing I've noticed about healing is that everywhere I've been on the planet, I've seen people healed by holy rocks, holy men, holy water, holy places, and holy moly. Mm-hmm. I've seen absolute fakes get genuine healings with people. This tells me something, and that is that everything works. The trick is find what works for you. If what you're into, your philosophy, your religion, your modality of healing isn't giving you the desired results, try something else. Believe me, you will find what works for you.
You've been given some insights into the future, the immediate future,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast future. Can you share with us some of the things that might be useful for us to understand about our immediate future, the futures that we will experience in this life?
We're very rapidly moving out of an industrial society worldwide. That's why jobs are going south. The third world countries need to come up a little bit, and then their industrial revolution will be over. We are that generation, that range, that group of generations in a very narrow band that are transmuting into a non-industrial society of the future. The near future is the next 50 to 75 years is about a redefinition of the human condition, what rights do humans have on the planet in a fifth dimensional awareness. We did this with the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights and all that. Secondly, have you noticed that the children don't seem to be interested in working nowadays? You hear parents say that all the time. Don't be so hard on them. The future's non-industrial. They have the answers, and they will build a non-industrial society, and a society in which most people will never work again. In fact, I was shown, and I came back in '82. I was the first person to really start saying this in public, and now even the government's saying it. It was on TV the other day. Someone told me there will never again in the history of the world be as many jobs as there once was. That time's over. But we've become industrial animals, so it's a little hard to let go of it. In fact, for us, we can't even imagine what a non-industrial society will be.
That's right. How will our needs be met?
Our children have those answers when we will be their children. Trust that there's something right going on within them. Don't try to distort them too much. In fact, I could see a vision of the guys that built the Great Pyramid sitting around talking about the children of that day saying, these kids of today, they'll never be able to build another Great Pyramid. Well, the truth is, we may not need another one. We may not need another industrial revolution. In fact, we don't. It's over. And in the future, and it's going to be that way more and more from now on, people not working. What are we going to do? This society is forming itself as we speak. Our children have the answers to that. Trust them.
Talking with Mellon Thomas Benedict, a remarkable man.
Hello, this is Mellon Thomas, and I hope that my insights from the other side will in some good way inspire you to love your life and this miracle planet that we share with all of Gaia's children. We are all, in so many ways, blessed beyond measure. Thank you.